You're sitting in a Boeing 737, heading to Miami for vacation. Or maybe it's just a regular business trip. You glance out the window, and you see the wing, elegant, swept back, modern American engineering. You think to yourself, but every time you see that wing shape, you're looking at stolen German technology from 1941, developed by a man named Adolf Busemann, snatched through Operation Paperclip, and today it's utilized in every single modern commercial airliner and fighter jet worldwide: Boeing 737, Airbus A320, F-35 Lightning. They all use Busemann's exact calculations from 1935. Let me show you how the Americans didn't just steal technology, but kidnapped the scientist himself to save their own aviation industry. July 25th, 1944, skies over Germany. American P-51 Mustang pilot, Major Jack Thompson, sees something that shouldn't exist. An aircraft with no propeller, screaming past at an impossible speed. Thompson tries to follow. His P-51 Mustang maxes out at 435 miles per hour in a dive. The German aircraft is cruising at 540 miles per hour in level flight. Thompson can't even get closer. He writes in his report, quote, "Impossible to catch, impossible to fight, impossible, based on everything I know about aerodynamics." That was the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter, but the revolutionary part wasn't the jet engine. The British had jets too. The Americans were experimenting with them. The revolutionary part was the wing shape, swept back, 18.5 degrees at the leading edge, effectively 35 degrees at the quarter chord. This specific geometry made the Me-262 105 miles per hour faster than any Allied fighter. And you'll find this exact geometry on every Boeing 737 soaring overhead today. But here's what's really shocking. This swept-wing technology wasn't invented in 1944 or even 1943 when the Me-262 first flew. It was invented in 1935, 9 years before the Me-262 became operational, by a German scientist who nobody took seriously until the Americans stole him after the war. 1935, Volta Conference in Rome, an international aviation conference. The best aerodynamicists in the world are there. Americans, British, Italians, French, Germans, and a 41-year-old German scientist named Adolf Busemann stands up and presents a theory that everyone thinks is insane. Busemann explains, at high subsonic speeds, above 435 miles per hour, a problem arises. Air compresses in front of the wing. Shock waves form. Resistance increases exponentially. The aircraft slows down, no matter how much thrust you have. But Busemann has a solution. Sweep the wings back 35 degrees. Air then flows at an angle over the wing, reducing the effective Mach number, delaying shockwave formation. The aircraft flies faster, with less resistance. Busemann presents mathematical calculations, wind tunnel tests, aerodynamic formulas, showing exactly why 35 degrees is optimal. Too shallow brings no advantage. Too steep increases drag at low speeds. 35 degrees is the sweet spot for high-speed flight in the subsonic range. What happens after his presentation? Most scientists ignore him. Theodor von Karman, the famous Hungarian-American aerodynamicist, is in the audience. He hears Busemann's theory, understands the mathematics, but thinks, interesting, academic, but impractical, because in 1935, all aircraft with propellers fly at a maximum of 250 to 310 miles per hour. At these speeds, you don't need swept wings. So, von Karman forgets the idea. The British forget it, the French forget it, the Italians forget. But the Germans don't forget it, because from 1938, German engineers are working on something that will fly at 435 to 500 miles per hour. Jet engines. 1939. Hans Joachim Pabst von Ohain develops a working turbojet engine. The Heinkel E-178 flies as the world's first jet aircraft, but it has straight wings. And in tests, it turns out that over 400 miles per hour, resistance increases massively. Just as Busemann had predicted, German engineers remember Busemann's presentation, dig out his calculations, contact him. Busemann is now at the Aerodynamics Research Institute in Göttingen, calculating exactly what sweep angle the Messerschmitt Me-262 needs. 18. 5 degrees at the leading edge, which corresponds to approximately 35 degrees at the quarter chord, exactly as he had theorized in 1935, 1941. The Me-262 prototype with swept wings is built. First test flights. Pilots are shocked. At 500 miles per hour, the aircraft flies more stably than Allied fighters at 310 miles per hour. Busemann's theory works perfectly. The Germans now have a fighter that's 125 miles per hour faster than anything the Allies have. But here is the tragedy. Hitler himself delays production, insisting that the Me-262 be built as a bomber, not as a fighter. The German Luftwaffe fights against this decision, but Hitler is obsessed with retaliatory attacks against England, wants to use the Me-262 as a fast bomber. This obsession delays the Me-262 as a fighter by almost 2 years. Only in July 1944 does the Me-262 become operational. As a fighter, exactly as the Luftwaffe wanted from the beginning, and immediately, it terrorizes Allied bomber formations. The Me-262 flies at 540 miles per hour into American B-17 formations, fires 30mm cannons, destroys bombers, disappears before escort fighters can react. P-51 Mustangs and Spitfires can do nothing. They are 105 miles per hour slower. Allied pilots write desperate reports. British pilot squadron leader Roland Beaumont writes, quote, Me-262 is like nothing we've ever seen. Appears out of nowhere. Attacks. Disappears before we can reach position. Our tactics are useless. Our speed is useless. We need a miracle or a new aircraft. The Americans send intelligence teams, analyze wreckage, find Me-262s that have crash-landed or been shot down, examine the wings, measure the sweep. 18. 5 degrees, but they don't understand why. American engineers think the sweep is because of center of gravity problems with jet engines, not because of aerodynamics. They don't understand Busemann's theory because they weren't listening in Rome in 1935. The British build their own answer, the Gloucester Meteor, the first Allied jet aircraft to become operational, July 1944, exactly the same month as the Me-262. But the Gloucester Meteor has straight wings, 0 sweep, maximum speed, 410 miles per hour, 130 miles per hour slower than the Me-262. Why? Because British engineers didn't know or didn't understand. Busemann's theory. The Americans developed the P-80 Shooting Star, the first American jet, also with straight wings, maximum speed, 600 kilometers per hour. Still too slow. It's too late for the war against Germany. It won't be operational until 1946. The Soviets, they completely copied the German Jumo 004 engine. They built the Yak-15 fighter around it. Guess what wing shape they used? Straight, no sweep, maximum speed, 640 kilometers per hour. Still slower than the Me-262. Allied jets from 1944 to 1946 are slower than the German Me-262. They all have straight wings. No one understands that the swept wing is the secret. It's like seeing the fastest car and thinking the engine is the key. But in reality, it's the aerodynamics of the body. The Allies copied the engine, but not the aerodynamics. The war ends in May 1945. Germany surrenders, Allied troops overrun Germany, and then the biggest technology theft program in history begins. Operation Paperclip. The goal: find German scientists, secure German documents, steal German engineering before the Soviets get to them. American intelligence teams have lists, names of German scientists. Priority: rocket technology, jet engines, aerodynamics. At the very top of the aerodynamics list is one name: Adolf Busemann, the man who invented the swept wing in 1935 and whom no one took seriously. But here's what the Americans didn't know. Busemann wasn't just a theorist. He was also a practitioner. From 1935 to 1945, he led the most advanced wind tunnel experiments in the world in Göttingen. He developed not only swept wings, but also supersonic aerodynamics theories. He worked on high-speed fluid mechanics. His research was 10 to 15 years ahead of what the Americans and British were doing. Aerodynamics Research Institute in Göttingen, 1941 to 1945. Busemann leads a team of 30 scientists. They have access to the most modern wind tunnels in Europe. They test airfoil designs at simulated speeds up to Mach 0.9. That's 90% of the speed of sound, 100 kilometers per hour. No Allied facility could do that in 1941. Busemann tests dozens of sweep angles: 15 degrees, 20 degrees, 25 degrees, 30 degrees, 35 degrees, 40 degrees, 45 degrees. He measures air resistance for each configuration. He documents exactly at what speed each angle is optimal. The result? For speeds between 800 and 900 kilometers per hour, a 35-degree sweep is perfect. Exactly the speed range where the Me-262 would operate. But Busemann goes further. He also calculates what happens at supersonic speeds, above Mach 1, above 1 to 200 kilometers per hour. And he discovers, at supersonic speeds, you need a 45 to 50-degree sweep. Or even delta wings, a triangular shape. These calculations will become the basis for Concorde, for the F-16 Fighting Falcon, for all supersonic fighters. Decades later, 1944, Busemann writes a secret report for the Luftwaffe. Title: Aerodynamics for High-Speed Flight, 347 pages. It contains all his wind tunnel data, all the mathematical formulas, all the optimal sweep angles for different speeds, detailed drawings, flow diagrams. This report will later revolutionize the American aviation industry. But first, the Americans have to find it. Back to the Me-262 in combat. Autumn 1944. The German Luftwaffe now has about 200 Me-262s operational. Sounds like a lot. But the Allied Air Force has 20,000 aircraft over Western Europe, a ratio of 100 to 1. Nevertheless, the Me-262 shoots down a disproportionate number of Allied bombers. October 7, 1944. And Me-262 from Jagdgeschwader 7 attacks an American bomber formation, 16 B-17 Flying Fortress bombers with 50 P-51 Mustang escort fighters. The Me-262 flies head-on into the formation, speed 850 kilometers per hour. American gunners try to aim, but the Me-262 is too fast. It appears as a dot. Seconds later, it's right in front of them. No time to react. The Me-262 fires four 30mm Mk108 cannons. Each shell weighs 330 grams. Explosive charge. One hit destroys a B-17 engine. 3 hits tear off a wing. Pilot Lieutenant Franz Schall shoots down 3 B-17s in a single attack. He disappears to the east before the P-51s can react. Total time, 90 seconds. 3 bombers destroyed. Me-262 undamaged. The Americans are desperate. They try new tactics, flying the formation tighter for concentrated defensive fire. It doesn't work. The Me-262 is too fast. They try to intercept the Me-262 during takeoff or landing. When they are slow, sometimes it works, but it's risky because German airfields are heavily defended with flak anti-aircraft fire. American Army Air Force's headquarters sends an urgent request to Washington. They need jets immediately. The P-80 Shooting Star is in development but not ready. The British could supply the Gloucester Meteor, but it's also too slow. No solution available. The only American hope? Cut off Germany's resources, bomb fuel refineries, destroy aircraft factories, make runways unusable. The strategy works partially. Me-262 production never reaches its full potential. Of the 400 Me-262s built, only about 200 to 300 are deployed operationally. The rest are lacking fuel, or pilots, or spare parts. But technologically, the Me-262 remains superior until the end of the war in May 1945. Me-262s shoot down about 542 Allied aircraft, with only about 100 of their own losses. That's a 5-to-1 exchange ratio. For an aircraft that was outnumbered 100-to-1, that is extraordinary. And then comes May 1945. Germany surrenders. American and British troops advance from the west. Soviets from the east. A race begins. Who will secure German engineering first? April 1945. American advance commandos reach Nordhausen. They find the underground Mittelwerk factory, where V-2 rockets were built, but also documents, blueprints, scientific reports. The Americans pack everything into trucks, hundreds of tons of documents, transporting them west before the Soviets arrive. May 1945. British troops reach Braunschweig. They find aviation research facilities. They seize wind tunnel data, reports on jet engines, swept wing studies. Everything is sent to England. But the big prize is Göttingen, Aerodynamics Research Institute, Busemann's lab. American troops reach Göttingen on April 8, 1945. They find the facility largely intact. German scientists didn't destroy everything. Why? Because they know, if the Soviets come, everything will be confiscated or destroyed. If the Americans come, there might be a chance for collaboration. Colonel Donald Putt, an American Air Force officer and engineer, enters Göttingen in May 1945. He sees the wind tunnels, he sees the instruments. He finds Busemann's 347-page report on high-speed aerodynamics. He begins to read. He turns pale. He immediately understands. The Germans are 10 to 15 years ahead. Putt sends an urgent report to Washington. Quote, "We have a fundamental misunderstanding about high-speed flight. German engineering has theories and experimental data that changes everything we know. Swept wings are not a design choice, but an aerodynamic necessity above 435 miles per hour. We must secure these scientists immediately." The Pentagon responds, "Do what is necessary. Secure the scientists, secure the document, secure the equipment, everything, before the Soviets get it." Putt creates a list. Names of scientists in Göttingen. Adolf Busemann is at the very top. Next to him, other names: aerodynamicists, engine specialists, material scientists. A total of 127 scientists in Göttingen. Putt wants them all. But here's the problem. Many German scientists were NSDAP members. Nazi Party membership was often mandatory for government work. American law prohibits Nazi members from immigrating to the USA. How does the Pentagon solve this? Operation Paperclip. The name comes from the paperclips that were attached to files to conceal NSDAP membership, a secret operation. approved directly by President Truman. The goal: bring German scientists to America, regardless of their political past, create new identities, erase their NSDAP history. Whitewash them. June 1945. American agents contact Adolf Busemann, make an offer. Come to America, work for NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, the predecessor to NASA. Salary: $10,000 per year. That's about $175,000 today. A house, a car, American citizenship after 5 years. Busemann hesitates. He's 51 years old, he has a family. Göttingen has been his home for 20 years. But what's the alternative? Stay in Germany? The country is in ruins. No research funding, universities destroyed, or go to the Soviets. Many German scientists are forcibly deported to the Soviet Union, working under guard. Busemann decides America, signs a contract in September 1945, is shipped to the USA in October 1945, together with 126 other scientists from Göttingen. All his documents, all the wind tunnel data, all reports about swept wings. Everything goes to America. And here begins the greatest technology transfer in history. Busemann doesn't just land anywhere. He lands at NACA Langley Research Center, Virginia, exactly where Theodor von Karman is, the man who heard Busemann's theory in Rome in 1935 and ignored it. Imagine this scene: 1946, Langley Laboratory. Von Karman sees Busemann, remembers Rome 1935, 11 years ago. He ignored Busemann's swept wing theory. Now Busemann stands before him with 347 pages of proof that he was right, with wind tunnel data, with the Me-262 success story. Von Karman has to admit, I was wrong. Busemann was right, and now America will use his theory to build every future American jet. 1946 to 1950, Busemann works at NACA Langley, heads the high-speed aerodynamics department. American engineers sit in his lectures, learning swept wing theory, studying his wind tunnel data from Göttingen. Busemann explains not only what works, but why. Mathematics, physics, and fluid mechanics, Americans get a complete education from the man who invented it all. North American aviation gets a contract. A new fighter jet must be faster than the Soviet MiG-9 and Yak-15, must work in the jet age. Engineers have a problem. The P-80 shooting star with straight wings is too slow. They need something revolutionary. The phone rings at North American Aviation. NACA Langley is calling. Send us an engineer, Adolf Busemann. He has the solution to your speed problem. 1947. Busemann visits North American Aviation in Los Angeles, meets Chief Engineer Edgar Schmude, explains swept wing theory, shows calculations, 35 degrees of sweep, for optimal performance between 560 and 620 miles per hour. Schmude is skeptical. Swept wings look strange, unconventional, could be unstable at low speeds. But Busemann shows me 262 data, proves it works perfectly. Schmude decides, we'll build it. With swept wings, 1947, North American F-86 Sabre design finalized, swept wings, 35 degrees, exactly Busemann's recommendation, exactly the same angle as the Me-262. No coincidence, it's the same technology, stolen, copied, re-implemented. 1948, first F-86 Sabre test flight. Pilot George Welch flies at 670 miles per hour, almost breaks the sound barrier. The F-86 is 250 miles per hour faster than the P-80 with straight wings. Busemann was right. Swept wings are the future. But here's what the American public doesn't find out. The government says the F-86 is an American innovation, an American design, American engineering. No mention of Busemann, No mention of the Me-262, no mention of Operation Paperclip. Why? Because admitting that German engineering was superior is embarrassing. Better to claim America invented it itself. 1950. The Korean War begins. The F-86 Sabre meets the Soviet MiG-15. And here, something ironic happens. The MiG-15 also has swept wings, 35 degrees, exactly the same angle as the F-86. Why? Because the Soviets also stole German engineering, also got Göttingen documents, also kidnapped German scientists. Air combat over Korea 1950 to 1953 isn't America versus the Soviet Union. It's German engineering versus German engineering. Busemann's 35-degree sweep versus Busemann's 35-degree sweep. F-86 with Busemann's design versus MiG-15 with Busemann's design. Both sides use stolen German aerodynamics. The F-86 wins most of the time, but not because of better design. Both have identical sweep. The F-86 wins because of better pilot training. Result: the F-86 shoots down 792 MiG-15s, loses only 78 of its own aircraft. A 10-to-1 exchange ratio. America declares victory. But in reality, Busemann's theory won against Busemann's theory. And while the F-86 is fighting over Korea, something even more important is happening in Seattle. The Boeing company is developing a new bomber, the B-47 Stratojet, the first American long-range jet bomber. Engineers have a problem. How do you transport 11 tons of bombs over 3,700 miles at jet speed? Boeing calls NACA Langley. Busemann comes again. 1948. Advises Boeing on the B-47 design. Recommends swept wings, 35 degrees, same theory, same mathematics. Boeing follows his advice. The B-47 gets 35-degree swept wings. 1951. The B-47 becomes operational, flies at 600 miles per hour, faster than many fighters of the time, can drop atomic bombs over the Soviet Union and return, transforms the Strategic Air Command, all because of Busemann's swept wings. Again, no public recognition for Busemann. Boeing gets all the glory. But Boeing understands now, swept wings aren't just for bombers, they're for everything. 1954. Boeing begins work on the 707, the first American commercial jet airliner. Guess what wing shape they used? Swept wings? 35 degrees? No. Boeing optimized it for a lower cruising speed at 32 degrees sweep, but the principle is identical. Busemann's theory from 1935. In 1958, the Boeing 707 revolutionized commercial aviation. It flew at 900 kilometers per hour, connecting New York with London in just 7 hours, instead of 15 hours with propeller-driven planes. It launched the jet age in commercial aviation, all because of swept wings. Other manufacturers followed suit. Douglas built the DC-8, swept wings. Convair built the 880, swept wings. The Europeans built the Sud Aviation Caravelle, swept wings. The Soviets built the Tupolev Tu-104, swept wings. Every commercial jet from 1958 onward used swept wings, all based on Busemann's theory, no exception. The 1960s. The supersonic race began. America wanted to build a Concorde competitor, the Boeing 2707 project. Engineers studied Busemann's old reports from 1944. They found his supersonic calculations, the recommendation for supersonic flight, 45 to 50 degrees sweep, or delta wings. The Concorde utilized delta wings. The Boeing 2707 was supposed to have variable sweep wings. The project failed in 1971, but the principle remained. Busemann had already calculated supersonic flight in 1944. Military jets followed Busemann's formulas. The F-4 Phantom, 45 degrees sweep. The F-14 Tomcat, variable sweep from 20 to 68 degrees. The F-15 Eagle, 45 degrees. The F-16 Fighting Falcon, 40 degrees. The F-18 Hornet, 20 degrees leading edge, effectively 40 degrees. Every American fighter jet uses swept wings in some form. They all go back to Busemann's calculations. In 1967, Adolf Busemann turned 73 years old and still working at the University of Colorado. As a professor of aerospace engineering, by now he had trained hundreds of American engineers, who in turn trained thousands more. His knowledge spread throughout the entire American aviation industry, but almost no one knows his name outside of specialized circles. The public doesn't know that this German scientist saved American aviation. Newspapers wrote about Boeing as an American genius, about NASA as an American innovation. Busemann remained invisible. Operation Paperclip remained a secret. In 1986, Busemann passed away at 92 years old. His obituary in the New York Times, just 3 sentences. It didn't mention that he invented swept wings. It didn't mention the Me-262. It didn't mention that every modern aircraft uses his technology. He disappeared from history, just as the Pentagon wanted. But his technology didn't disappear. In 1967, Boeing developed the 737. It became the best-selling commercial airliner of all time. Over 11,000 built to date. Guess what wing shape? Swept wings, 25 degrees, optimized for a cruising speed of 850 kilometers per hour, directly based on Busemann's principles, the Airbus A320. Over 11,000 built, swept wings, 25 degrees. Busemann's theory, the Boeing 777, the largest twin-engine airliner, swept wings, 31.6 degrees. Busemann's theory, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, the most modern composite technology, swept wings, 32 degrees. Busemann's theory, modern fighter jets. The F-22 Raptor, the most modern American fighter, swept wings, 42 degrees. The F-35 Lightning II, 35 degrees leading edge sweep. Exactly Busemann's original recommendation from 1935. After 90 years, still optimal. European fighters. The Eurofighter Typhoon, delta wings with canards, based on Busemann's supersonic theories. The Dassault Rafale. Delta wings, the same theory. The Sabre Gripen, delta wings. Everything goes back to Busemann's Göttingen research. Even Chinese and Russian jets. The Chengdu J-20, swept wings. The Sukhoi Su-57, swept wings. 42 degrees. All use principles that Busemann presented in 1935, and no one believed. Let me show you how complete Busemann's dominance is. Today, 2025, every commercial airliner worldwide, Boeing, Airbus, Embraer, Bombardier, Comac, all use swept wings, no exception. Every modern fighter jet, American, Russian, Chinese, European, swept wings or delta wings, all are based on Busemann's mathematics. An estimated 100,000 aircraft fly today with swept wings. 40 million flights per year worldwide. Every single one uses technology that a German scientist invented in 1935, that the Americans and British ignored, that the Me-262 proved in 1941, that Operation Paperclip stole in 1945, and that today is presented as American or Western innovation. The total economic value of the aviation industry based on swept wings, over $800 billion annually. Boeing alone, $66 billion in revenue in 2024. Airbus, 65 billion euros. Military aviation worldwide, over $200 billion. And it all is based on a theory that Adolf Busemann developed 90 years ago. Imagine you are Busemann in 1935. you present a revolutionary theory. No one listens. No one believes you. 10 years later, your technology proves itself in combat. The Me-262 dominates everything. Then, you are kidnapped, brought to America. Your technology is stolen, your name is erased, and 40 years later, you die almost forgotten, while the whole world uses your invention without even knowing you existed. That's not just technology theft, that's erasure from history. Busemann should be as famous as the Wright brothers, as Werner von Braun, as Howard Hughes, but Operation Paperclip erased him. The Pentagon didn't want to admit that a German scientist saved American aviation. So, they wrote him out of the history books. Today, when you fly to Miami on a Boeing 737, no one thinks about Adolf Busemann. No one thinks about the Me-262. No one thinks about Operation Paperclip. You see swept wings and you think modern technology. But in truth, you are looking at 90-year-old German engineering, stolen. Copied and sold as American, every modern fighter jet. The F-35 Lightning II costs $80 million per unit. The USA bought over 450 units. That's $36 billion for aircraft that use 35-degree swept wings. Exactly Busemann's recommendation from 1935. Every time an F-35 flies, it flies with German aerodynamics. The Europeans paid billions for Eurofighter Typhoon development. Germany, England, Italy, Spain, together, over 37 billion euros. For a delta wing design that is directly based on Busemann's supersonic theories. Without Busemann's research from Göttingen, the Eurofighter would not exist. China is developing the J-20 stealth fighter. Estimated development costs $30 billion. It uses swept wings and a canard configuration based on aerodynamic principles that Busemann developed. The Chinese learned it from Soviet engineers, who learned it from captured German documents from Göttingen. Everything goes back to the same man. And then there's the irony. Germany itself buys Eurofighters, pays billions for an aircraft that is based on technology that a German scientist invented, that Germany lost to Operation Paperclip. Germany is now paying for its own stolen technology, re-imported as European innovation. It's like someone steals your car, repaints it, slaps a new brand on it, and then sells it back to you for $100,000. And you buy it. Not knowing it was originally yours. That's exactly what happened with swept-wing technology. Modern engineers study at MIT, at Stanford, at Caltech. They learn aerodynamics, learn swept-wing theory. Textbooks say fundamental principle of high-speed aerodynamics. They sometimes mention Busemann in a footnote, mostly not. Students think common knowledge. No one tells them. One man invented this. It was stolen. His story was erased. I want you, the next time you fly, to look out the window, see the swept wing, and think Adolf Busemann, 1935, Volta Conference in Rome. Nobody believed him. The Me-262 proved it. Operation Paperclip stole it, and now I'm flying with his technology, without his name on the airplane. This is the greatest technology theft in history, not because of quantity, but because of completeness. They didn't just steal the technology. They stole the inventor. They stole the documents. They stole the history. And they replaced it with an American narrative. Boeing is celebrated as an innovator. NACA is celebrated as a pioneer. But without Busemann, both would have needed another 10 to 15 years to develop swept wings. The Korean War in 1950, without the F-86 Sabre with swept wings, the Americans would have had no air superiority against the MiG-15. Without air superiority, they would have lost the Korean War, the Vietnam War, without the F-4 Phantom with its 45-degree sweep. No effective airstrikes. The Cold War, without the B-47 and B-52 with swept wings. No credible nuclear deterrent. The entire American military dominance from 1950 to today is based partly on stolen German engineering. Without Busemann, history looks different, but nobody admits it, because admitting that German engineering was technologically superior contradicts the victor's narrative. The official story says the Allies won because of superiority, better technology, better science, better engineers, but the truth is more complicated. The Germans had better technology in many areas: jet engines, rockets, swept wings, infrared targeting systems. The Allies won because of production capacity, resources, numbers, not because of technological superiority. And after the war, the Allies stole German engineering systematically: Operation Paperclip for scientists, separate programs for equipment, for documents, for factory machines. An estimated over 10,000 German scientists and engineers were brought to America, England, France, the Soviet Union, not voluntarily, but as part of state-organized robbery. Busemann is just one example. Werner von Braun, V-2 rockets, became NASA director, brought Apollo to the moon, German rocket technology. Herbert Wagner, guided missiles. Arthur Rudolph, Saturn V production. Walter Dornberger, space programs. The list goes on, hundreds of names, all stolen through Operation Paperclip. If you understand this connection, you understand why America was so dominant in aerospace from the 1950s to the 1970s. Not because America produced superior scientists, but because America stole German scientists, who already had 10 to 15 years of research. America bought itself an advantage with kidnapped geniuses. But here's what bothers me the most. It's not just the theft. Theft happens. Winners plunder losers. That's war. What bothers me is the historical revisionism. Books say Boeing invented swept wings for commercial aviation. Wrong. Busemann invented it. Textbooks say NACA developed high-speed aerodynamics. Wrong. Aerodynamics Research Institute in Göttingen developed it. NACA stole the documents. Documentaries show American engineers as the heroes of the jet age. They don't mention that they were taught by German prisoner-of-war scientists. Museum exhibitions celebrate the F-86 Sabre as an American innovation. They don't show the Me-262 next to it, with identical swept wings. History is being rewritten to make the winners look better. I'm not saying Germany was good. I'm not saying the Nazis deserve recognition. I'm just saying technology has no nationality. Truth is important. Adolf Busemann was a brilliant aerodynamicist, regardless of his nationality or the political system under which he worked. His theory was correct. His math was precise, and his invention changed the world. Every time 40 million people fly each year, they are using his work. He deserves to have his name known, not celebrated necessarily, but known, acknowledged, in history books, in textbooks, on plaques in airports, somewhere. But he gets nothing because Operation Paperclip stole his legacy, just as they stole him, and that is perhaps the perfect theft. They took not only his present, but also his future, his recognition, his place in history. You're sitting in a Boeing 737 right now, flying home, looking out the window, seeing a swept wing. Now you know the truth. That's not Boeing innovation, that's Busemann technology from 1935, stolen in 1945, being used in 2025. 90 years, billions of flights, trillions of dollars in revenue, and no one knows the name of the man who made it all possible. If this story makes you angry, or thoughtful, or simply shows you how complex history really is, then support this channel with super thanks. Research for these videos takes weeks, verifying sources, checking technical details, ensuring that every number is correct. Your support enables more research like this. more hidden stories, more forgotten geniuses. Write in the comments, what other WW2 technology are we using today? Without knowing where it came from. Jet engines, computers, rockets, infrared cameras, each has a similar story. German engineering, Allied theft, historical revision. Let me know which story you want to hear next. And on your next flight, look out the window, see the swept wing. Think of Adolf Busemann, the man whose name you never knew, but whose work carries you through the skies. That's his legacy. Invisible, stolen, but everywhere.